Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week, as he does most weeks, is Casey, the strongest man I know, Onyebuchi.
Dilly, dilly, good sir.
Dilly, dilly, sir. How are you this fine evening?
I am both awesome and terrible simultaneously.
Well, that is a wonderful thing to be if you want to be unique.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Yeah,
though.
I was trying to figure out where I was going to go with it too. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm painting myself into a corner.
Do better.
All right. Well, hey, man, the UFC had a lot to show in St. Louis, Missouri on Sunday night, where little heathen Jeremy Stephens faced off against the Korean superboy, Dooho Choi.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So, I thought it was a great card. I know that there's a lot of people who were kind of downplaying it, but it was a short card. There were 4 fights on it, and they got down to business. I thought it was great.
It had its moments. It was interesting.
All right. Well, hey, other things we got on the show. We got the hype train rolling out of the station, and we got news in Finding the Angles. Then we're going to close out the show with a preview of the fights coming up this weekend. I'm calling this weekend the War Weekend because...
The War Weekend.
Yeah, it's War Weekend because you got UFC 220 with the 2 baddest men on the planet going for the heavyweight championship. You got the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix kicking off, and you also have Rory McDonald going for Douglas Lima's welterweight championship belt. All of it's happening on one night, January 20th. This is War Weekend.
I'm digging it.
All right, but before we talk about all of those matches, let's run down the results from the card on Sunday night in the official decision.
The official decision.
This is the official decision, the segment where we talk about all the fights on Sunday night from UFC St. Louis. So, in the first fight of the night, it was Darren Elkins who defeated Michael Johnson via submission in round 2.
Yeah, the thing with watching Michael Johnson fight, he may not win, but he's going to stick in the pocket and trade blows. So that's always interesting. He's got to be able to switch up his game, but still an interesting fight.
Got to be able to protect yourself on the ground. When you get someone who can grapple, if you can't grapple and can't do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you are not going to be a great fighter in this sport. Now, that fight was supposed to be on the prelims. Unfortunately, Uriah Hall, who was supposed to fight in the co-main event against Vitor Belfort, Uriah Hall's body failed him on the weight cut. But we will cover that in Finding the Angles.
Yep.
Number 10, Kamaru, not Kamaru, if you listen to Bruce Buffer, Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare, Usman, defeated Emil Valhalla Mech.
My dude.
Via unanimous decision, a.k.a. he beat him by takedowns. He had 8 takedowns in that fight.
Dude, the takedowns were awesome, so I know there's a lot of booing going on for the crowd.
Ooh.
But, I mean, if you're really a fan of wrestling, at 30%, my man Kamaru was still dominating the fight.
I'm going to have to ask you to pronounce it by his appropriate pronunciation.
Oh, Kamaru Usman.
All right. So, Jessica Rose Clark defeated number 11, Paige 12-gauge Van Zant via unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm never going to be a fan of Paige Van Zant. She can't fight. She's an amazing person to market for the UFC. Too bad she can't win.
Okay. Hey, you know what? I think she put on a valiant fight versus Jessica Rose Clark. She suffered in the first round a broken arm in the doing a spinning back fist and fought through it for the next 2 rounds.
This is what happens when you're like the smallest person in your division. She's clearly getting out muscled. She's got nothing to give. I think it's time for her to move aside at this point.
You know what? I think it's time for her to keep fighting. She's got a lot of heart, and I believe. Listen, I'm not going to steal
heart does not equate to skill.
I'm gonna save it. Number 9, In the main event, number 9, Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens defeated number 13, Dooho Choi via knockout in round 2.
Dooho Choi, man, you were right about in our fight preview. Yeah, he can take a beating, but there's no chance.
Yeah, what I was saying last week. What I should have done is I should have took a drop of me predicting Dooho Choi getting knocked out last week, but I predicted it. Go back, listen to it. It's at the end of the recording. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. But Jeremy Stevens, he's packed so much power. He's been knocking people out. And when the best thing you bring to the ring is the ability to sustain damage, you don't want to get hit by Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah, honestly, it was kind of cool to watch those two go at it because there was a lot of, again, staying in the pocket and just trading blows here. Dooho Choi, he got caught. Was it a right hand that he was kind of caught, maybe slightly glancing, but once he hit the ground and Stevens dropped from the top rope a bomb on Dooho's head, like it was done.
Yeah, and it was done. He turtled up. The ref instantly jumped in there and stopped the fight. I thought it was a good stoppage. I know that you tend to want to let them
fight.
Hashtag protect the fighter. Protect that fighter. He was done.
But Bisping and I will both agree that maybe just a little bit longer to see if he can recover.
See, what are you talking about? What are you talking about Bisping's eye? What do you mean Bisping and eye? He only got one of those things.
Well played, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's it. That's the card. Let's close the book on this one and put it on the shelf because this card is history. Now, normally we go right into finding the angles, but I want to go into one of my favorite segments, and that's the hype train.
The hype train.
This is the hype train where we decide whether or not we're getting on board the hype that's following a fighter or if we're getting off the fighter hype train. And the first one on the list is Kamaru Usman.
I am 100% on board for this. Kamaru he's stringing together wins. He's calling out the right people. He's doing everything that it takes to work up to being a champion. And I think he's got a good skill set to get it done.
I'm going to tell you like this. He's a good fighter. He's a dominant fighter. But I'm getting off the hype train. I'm off the hype train. Open the doors. Let me out. I don't want to be on this train anymore.
The ultimate bandwagon fan. What did he do this time to upset you?
So it all comes down to his comments after the fight. Let me play his comments here.
Listen, I fought this fight sitting at about 30%. Everybody knows what I'm capable of. That was 30% right there, and I still dominated a tough so-called Viking. Dominated him, and that was at 30%.
So here's the deal. It's not the fact that he experienced some type of illness or some type of, problem with his health or training or something like that he had to come in there fighting at 30%. It's the fact that in the backstage interview, which you can no longer find on UFC.com, he says something to the effect that he said in the ring, I beat this guy at 30%. And then he said, imagine what I would be at 80%.
Nothing wrong with that. You are Mr. I love promo talk. Trash talk is all good. Nothing he said there is wrong.
Except for the fact that who freaking wants people to see them fight at 80%?
A guy who's realistic and doesn't throw out numbers like 110%. It's not realistic. It doesn't exist in sports.
That is not the spirit of competition. Even if you don't want to say that it's realistic to have 110%, it's still you fight, you give your all. All is not 80%. That is most. All
is 100% of that 80% that you're able to give.
No, that's
80%. How math works.
No, he is not saying I plan on coming in at 20% deficient. I'm going to come in and train so hard that I'm only at 80%, so I can only give 100% of my 80%. No, this is a dude who's saying I am not going to ever give my all.
That's not what he's saying.
What I would do at 80%.
That's not at all what he's saying.
I'm off the
He's
hype
still
train.
saying. Well, hey, if going in there and giving 138,000.6% is what it's required, then should you tap like in the case of Paige Van Zandt? Should she have tapped and just been like, all right, I can't give my all. Don't want the fans to be disappointed.
Okay, so here we go. You ready? She's on the hype train. I am on the Paige Van Zandt hype train. I have my ticket punched. I'm waiting for that train to come in and the doors to open because I'm going to be the first one on board. I'm going to bogart my way in there, hitting people with elbows so I can sit in the front behind Paige as she drives this train.
Yo, I am on the Paige Van Zandt hype train.
What?
As long as it's for Dancing with the Stars.
I was getting ready to say.
Got him. There's no way you can convince me that she has what it takes to succeed at 125 when she didn't have it at 115.
Okay, here's the thing. It comes down to heart. Like, if she's going to get into the ring and fight and have a broken arm in the first round and then fight through it through the second and third round and not get submitted and not get knocked out, that's heart, man. I can get behind that. Yeah, maybe she's not the best fighter, but having my support doesn't require that you are the best fighter. Actually, I follow my number one guy is the best fighter. But if you've got heart and you go in there, I mean, people love people like Clay Guida, and they love what was his name with the red hair? They used to, can't think of his name.
Smiling Sam Alvey.
Not smiling. No, his hair was dyed. I can't think of his name right now.
CM Punk.
Not CM Punk. Okay, you're making me mad now because I can't think of this guy's name. You know what's going to happen is the moment I hit stop on this recording, I'm going to come up with it. But anyway, people love it doesn't matter if you get knocked out, if you get beat. If you go in there and you give it your all, not 80%, Kamaru.
I gave my best,
100%.
But I guess my best wasn't good enough. All right,
Yes.
just let that go. Edit that out.
No, it is in. Just in case Jeffrey Osborne is going to be listening to the show. All right, last person to talk about on the hype train, Jeremy Stevens, man. He's putting in some good work.
Lil Heathen, I can be on board with this guy. Kind of later into his career has figured out how to string together some convincing wins. And to me, I'm about the wins. I don't care about the rest of your hype. If you know how to get it done in the ring, then I can be on board.
Well, how you get it done makes a difference to me, and so he gets freaking people to sleep. Like, they should start calling him the Sandman. Let's forget the fact that you've got the rhyme with Little Heathen and Stevens. Let's just talk about the fact that you put people to sleep. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay, you got nothing for me there.
All right.
Okay, so that's it. With all the fights scheduled for next week, we got to do this segment again. So for all you out there, make sure you got your tickets punched and get ready to climb aboard the hype train. I want you to let us know which hype trains you were on. All right, now let's look at the headlines that are making waves in the wake of UFC St. Louis with Finding the Angles.
Do. Oh, you are.
Let's try that again. Okay, I'm just messing with you now. One more time.
I hate you.
Finding the Angles.
All right, this is Finding the Angles, where we discuss some of the top headlines making waves in the MMA world. All right, the first one, we've already done enough on Kamaru Usman. Oh, I do have one thing that I want to talk about. Okay, So he's in the ring, and I know that you are first generation Nigerian American. Both your parents came from Nigeria. So here's what I want to know is Kamaru Usman in his post-fight comments, he calls out Colby Covington, and then he starts speaking like another language. So I know that you are a multi-talented person, play 12 instruments, strongest man in America, one of the strongest men in America in your age and weight division.
Ladies, that's my resume. Feel free to Find me on Instagram.
Multilingual as well. So I wanted you to see. I wanted to see if you understood what he was saying. So here we go.
Naija, they say we're not fit doing. I go show them say Naija, we not the ever carry last.
Okay, do you understand that?
Technically, that's English. That is pidgin English, but that is technically English.
That is, I know, I speak English. The words, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Well played. Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I mean, 30 some odd years of being yelled at. I've figured that out along the way. So, what Kamaru is saying there is, he's saying he's a Nigerian man, and they said that I'd never be able to do this, but I'm here to tell you that I'm never going to lose. That is that whole notion of never carrying last. So, yeah, I got this is basically what he's saying.
Okay, that is impressive. Like, you're going to have to teach me how to do that. Like, I don't know how you got that from this.
Naija, they say we're not fit doing. I go show them say Naija, we not the ever carry last.
That was something, but it wasn't English.
Oui, d'accord.
Wow. See? All right. Okay, so the thing that I thought was interesting, and we alluded to it in the official decision, is weight cutting woes claim another card with Uriah Hall. Dude's body shut down on him.
Yeah, his body shuts down. Dana White says the guy's not a professional and goes right back to doing what Dana White does, which is cutting down his fighters rather than figuring out how to be a businessman and promote folks.
Well, I mean, I don't know that you can promote Uriah Hall. I mean, if you think about the fights that he has, he's an inconsistent fighter, and basically Dana White said that the Performance Institute reported that Uriah Hall wasn't taking the training and the training and the diet
supplementation and all of that
that stuff seriously. That even before he went to St. Louis, dude traveled off and broke off from the training and went to L.A.
So there's my slight problem with that is, as a guy who just had to make weight this weekend, like, there is a time and place to be strict about your diet, but if you're within a certain fluctuation, every fighter, every person who has to make weight kind of knows their body to some degree. You know that there's some wiggle room there, that you can afford to have some fun, eat tiramisu. And worry about that 1 pound later. So I can't necessarily say that him not being 100% on board with their diet is that big of an issue. How many other fighters have missed their weight, even having gone through their protocol?
But this isn't about missing weight. This is about body shutting down, having seizures because you are robbing your body of too many electrolytes and water and not replenishing them because you haven't made weight yet. I mean, what the UFC Performance Center is guaranteeing is that they will get you to your fight weight without incident, healthily, the proper way to do it. And if Uriah Hall is cutting so much that he goes into kidney failure or into some other type of body failure, then clearly his breaking away from the UFC Performance Institute regimen was a bad move on his part, and he should be held responsible for that.
It's a bad move, but this is something that has to be fixed within all of fighting. Maybe they take a page out of my lifting federation. I lift in the USSF, and we don't do weigh-ins. We do weigh-outs. So you have to be within your weight class at the end of your event, not at the beginning. There is no way to cheat that system.
Perhaps that's the way to do it.
If you're about protecting fighters and fighter safety, it starts with making weight.
There it is. Okay, I don't disagree with you here. Let's go on. Vitor Belfort was supposed to be Uriah Hall's opponent, and he is asking the UFC for his show money because he showed up, he weighed in, he did what he was supposed to do. He just didn't get to fight.
Hey, he showed. Pay the man.
So Dana White was asked about that, and Dana White said, well, let me tell you why we don't want to give him his show money. Because we offered him a fight that night, and he turned it down. We offered him a fight next week, and he turned it down. So
rightfully so.
Why should we pay him show money for turning down fights that were available not only this week but next week. I think he has a point.
I vehemently disagree, given that this is the guy's last fight. Why should he take a 1-day notice fight for his last fight?
Look, I'm gonna be serious with you for a moment. Because we know the statistics on a person who comes in as a late fight replacement. It's your leg. Vitor Belfort probably wasn't gonna beat Uriah Hall. He was gonna end up losing that fight. So,
but it would have been spectacular.
It would have been a highlight reel knockout, probably. But anyway, the fight that he's pining for is Michael Bisping's retirement fight in London.
I mean, it makes sense. Why? So he misses out on Uriah Hall. Bonehead doesn't make weight. They offer him the 1-day replacement. Of course, you say no to that because there's no incentive to it. Then you get on the 220 card. Why do that if there's a bigger payday to be had on your last fight?
Yeah, because there's a bigger payday. That's why. So, I'm with the UFC. Hey, you didn't want to fight on this card? We're not going to pay you show money. We'll pay you show money when you show up on another fight. Hey, it's not show friends.
I am always with the fighter because I believe they got to make as much money as they can for the most dangerous sport there is, and why should they be making a pittance comparatively?
All right. So Dana White was asked about rankings and the fact that rankings don't seem to matter in the UFC because people are chasing the money, looking for money fights, hence the Vitor Belfort, Michael Bisping 2. And Dana White says that fighters should focus less on trying to pine for money fights and just work on building themselves as stars. Thoughts on that?
I think that this is the epitome of Dana White taking the UFC in the complete wrong direction. He's clearly taking this away from your ability to fight and to show us something in the ring. And he wants more people to get out there and say ridiculous things that sell fights, because that's what he's allowed this to become, is basically the Kardashian of sports.
I disagree with you. I think what he's saying is go out and fight, knock folks out, be like Jeremy Stevens. Be like Robbie Lawler. Be like Francis Ngannou. If you beat people like that, they will follow you. You will get the big fights. You will get the title shots. But if you will get the title shots, but you will get no money with this. Like, it's the UFC is not going to support you. They're not going to make sure that your title fight pulls in $10 million. I mean, you're never going to make Conor money. And the only way to do that in the UFC is to be a ridiculous person. No, let me say it like this. And as you were talking, it really made me think about this. They can't market you unless you have a highlight reel. If all your fights look like 80% Kamaru Usman laying on somebody, I can't make a highlight film about that.
Well, how do you explain Paige Van Zandt? What is her highlight reel?
Okay, if you put someone in the sunken place like Francis Ngannou, then you get a highlight reel, you get some pub.
I can see it. Like, I don't want to be completely contrarian, but I still maintain the UFC has to do a better job of marketing for the fighters. Okay, the fighters have a big enough job as it is.
So I'm not going to leave your question to hang. What about Paige Van Zandt? How do you explain Paige Van Zandt? The same way I explain someone like Sage Northcutt.
Yep.
There are two things that you can do. There are three things. There are three ways to market you. One, beat people to death and make a highlight film of just brutal knockouts. They can turn that into a star. That's your Francis Ngannou. That's your
Amanda Nunes.
I was going to go with Chris Cyborg, but that's okay.
All right.
Be a freaking amazing personality on the mic. Or I could have gone John Jones with that as well. Be someone amazing on the mic. Conor McGregor, amazing on the mic. Chael Sonnen, amazing on the mic. If you can
Terrible in the ring.
He doesn't have to be a great fighter because he can sell himself because he's amazing on the mic. Yeah. Or look amazing. If you have the look, they can market that because it looks good on a poster.
What is the look?
Well, let's see people who have the look.
Ronda Rousey.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Ronda Rousey. Sage Northcutt. Paige Van Zandt.
Maybe the karate hottie. I might throw her in there.
You could throw her in there. I'm sure that there are other fighters who have the look, but, specifically those people seem to be able to get publicity from the UFC, and really
despite iffy records,
none of them are like elite. Probably the best one of that group is Stephen Thompson, and he's gotten beaten twice by Tyron Woodley, or was it a draw and a defeat? So he's the best of the group, but all of them seem to get that same level of publicity because I have to say it has to be because of their look and not necessarily because of their performance in the ring. So those are your 3 ways to become a star in the UFC. Knock folks out, Anderson Silva style, if you will. Talk well on the mic, be a great spokesperson on the mic, Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen, or have the look like Paige Van Zandt and Sage Northcutt and those guys. That's how you do it.
Yeah, it's tough. So the average fighter is just not going to make money. So sorry, Vitor.
Well, you know what? The UFC.
Sorry, pretty much every fighter who's not U.S. born.
The UFC is not about average fighters. It's his Ultimate Fighting Championship. This is not the average fighting championship. So be That's ultimate. Fair. Be a star. And when I think about ultimate, there's only one name that comes to the top, and that is Conor. The notorious Conor McGregor, who says he wants to fight in September of 2018. That's 9 months away.
Yeah, I think he just picked a ridiculous date so that he stays just relevant enough that people wonder if he's serious. The UFC already gave him a date. He's had enough time laid off between his fights. You have no excuse.
Dana White said if he doesn't come back by March, they're going to take the belt and give it to Tony Ferguson.
Yes, they should.
I think I support it.
Yeah. Of course, Conor has to come back for an immediate chance to defend his belt if he ever comes back. But I truly think he's sitting out hoping that belt changes hands first.
Well, I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, if he doesn't know if he wants to fight, if he wants to wait till September, let him wait till September. We guarantee him a title shot when he comes back. But for now, let's clear the logjam. Let's give Tony Ferguson the belt that he rightfully earned. Let's set him in the ring with Khabib Nurmagomedov, and let's have a happy day because that's going to be one heck of a fight.
Yeah, you get one problem with this, though. So this happens, so Tony retains his championship, let's say. Who does Tony fight after that?
Well, then you
got to call Conor back out.
No, if it's March, you could probably, depending on how much damage he takes from Khabib, he might be out. Theoretically, he could be out for 4 to 5 months. That gets you to August. So Conor wants to come back in September. You could do an October or November fight. That could work. So sure. I think that the timing is right. The UFC needs to go ahead and pull that belt from Conor. Let's get this show on the road. Let's put that fight in March, and then with between Khabib and Tony Ferguson, El Cucuy, and then we'll bring Conor back when Conor's ready. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving the fights down the line. It's a competitive division. All right. Speaking of interim titles, speaking of people getting the championship handed to them, Robert Whittaker, who was supposed to defend his now real middleweight title at UFC 221 in Perth, Australia, he's out. He's injured. So now they got another interim title fight. Luke Rockhold versus the Soldier of God, Yoel Romero, one of the favorites of our show.
Don't forget Jesus.
That's right. So I think this is a good fight. There's a lot of people who want to watch Yoel Romero and Luke Rockhold go. This has been a fight that people have been calling for forever. I think it's, if Robert Whittaker is going to be out, who's the champion, if he's going to be out for some time, let's go ahead and get the interim title. We know that Luke Rockhold or Yoel Romero will retain their title, and when Robert Whittaker comes back, then we will get a title defense. Not like George St. Pierre, who's like, my belly hurts. I don't feel too good. Colitis.
That's fair.
Jimmy Smith. He is the Joe Rogan of Bellator, has now signed with the UFC. So Joe Rogan's contract with the UFC ends here in 2018. And so the UFC was caught needing to find someone to replace Joe Rogan. And so who else to get better than the second best color commentator in mixed martial arts, if I consider Joe Rogan the best. So Jimmy Smith.
As you should. He is clearly head and shoulders above anyone else who's doing it.
So after watching UFC 1 and not being able to handle the length of the fights and the brutality of the matches, I came back in 2006 when I caught a David Loiseau fight. That's how I got back into this. And it was Joe Rogan's color commentary that educated me and helped me understand the complexities of the sport. And I began to enjoy mixed martial arts in the UFC thanks to Joe Rogan. So this podcast would not exist today if it wasn't for David Loiseau and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, so I gotta be honest. They were game changers for making fighting interesting for the common guy, because you never know what Joe's gonna say.
Yeah, so it'll be sad to see him go, but I think a great replacement. If there's ever a good replacement, it's Jimmy Smith. And here's the thing, is that I am surprised at who they replaced Jimmy Smith with, and that is Big John McCarthy.
Big John.
So
that's a good replacement, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he clearly knows his stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, so Big John McCarthy is one of the there's considered two of the great referees in the UFC. One, of course, is Herb Dean, who likes to see people get beat up long before they should be stopped. And
that's why it's my dude.
And Big John McCarthy, who has basically been a rock calling and refereeing fights in mixed martial arts for at least a decade, maybe more, probably more.
Yeah.
Now he's going to be sitting behind the booth and doing color commentary. And I think he's a former fighter. I think he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a ref and a judge. There will not be a person calling fights that has more experience in this sport than Big John McCarthy. I think that's a great one for Bellator.
It's a great move. The downside is the ring will really miss him. We need good refs who have expertise like that.
Yeah, so I can't wait to watch a Bellator card where Big John McCarthy is going to be calling the shots. And so people that I've heard that have seen him, they say he's great.
I would imagine. I mean, he's got enough experience, has seen it all, talked to all the fighters. Everyone loves him.
All right, last two that's on the Finding the Angles. These are ones that you wanted to talk about. Number one, John Jones. What you got?
John Jones has officially passed a lie detector test to prove that he did not knowingly, though he did take them, did not knowingly take anabolic steroids. I say this is a step towards at least shortening the suspension. No doubt it's going to be a suspension. The UFC wants it for 8 years, even though that the max is probably going to be around 4. But the shorter it gets, the closer we are to the possibility of actually seeing a John Jones just outside of his prime return to the octagon.
So if the UFC is pushing for 8 years, how do you, as John Jones, then return to the UFC knowing that they were trying to get you the book thrown at you?
Contracts, that's the only way. If he's got some kind of weird clause in the contract, that's the only thing that keeps him there, because honestly, him moving to Bellator would be huge. He's not going to make that big money right out of the gate, but I think it'd be a game changer for Bellator, and he'd probably be happier there at this point, because there is no love between Dana White and John Jones.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. Definitely my eyes would go to Bellator even more than they do now if John Jones was over there. I mean, but
would you watch if he went to World Series of Fighting?
What's that? Is that even
that's the proper? That's the proper response.
To be honest, I'm not even sure if that's still a promotion. I think they've gone out of business. I don't think that they can even exist anymore. For fans who are listening to this show, do the Google search. I don't have time to do it right now, but are they still around? I haven't seen a card from World Series of Fighting in forever. But you know who would take them? ONE FC. Those guys. They need a new big star. So maybe John Jones would be would be over there, but I'd like to see him at Bellator. I mean, I think this is a 2-horse race. Last one before we get out of this segment. Felice Herring, what you got?
As far as people that need to be hyped up a little more, I would say that Felice Herring has earned it. She's on a 4-fight win streak now. She puts together some interesting finishes, some interesting fights. I would say that this is a prime example of the UFC needing to do a better job of hyping up and people who are coming up within the division so that they can have money fights later. She's doing all the right things. She's growing her social media following. She's winning in the ring. What more do you want? We should be hearing more from Felice Herring.
So here's my question for you. Have you looked at her record?
No. I'm just worried about where she's at recently.
Yeah, because you know who she's got a loss to.
Who's that? Thug Rose, I would imagine.
No, she's got a loss to Paige Van Zandt. That's right. My girl.
I hate you so much.
She beat Felice Herring. You're on the Herring train, and it's going nowhere because the real train is Paige Van Zandt. There you go.
All right. You were storing. I knew during our show prep that there was some bomb you were waiting to drop on me. Felice, my apologies. He set us both up.
Boom. Rocked them.
This is why I don't play chess with you. You're always moves ahead. I hate you.
That's right. All right. Well, that's it. We got one segment left to go. It is War Weekend with the two biggest promotions in the world going head-to-head on Saturday night. Let's look at all the action planned on the fight card. If I can get my mouse over.
The fight card.
This is the fight card, where we look at the fights that are scheduled this weekend, and this week is filled to the brim with great fights. We're going to go to the Forum in Inglewood, California.
Are we?
Yes, we are. With Bellator Lima versus McDonald. This is Bellator's. This is their big card. This is what they've been holding Roy McDonald back for. They've been waiting for him to come on this card and show the world what he can do in Bellator. So
Rory's still got it. Yeah.
I think he does. I mean, this is one of the few fighters that they got from the UFC that's still in his prime. So let's go through the whole card. You got Aaron Pico versus Shane Crutchkin, and Aaron Pico is the guy who we first saw cut the strings from the puppet.
That's a knockout term for those of you guys who don't remember it.
Yeah, if you think about a puppet and you cut the strings, he knocked somebody out like that. Michael Chandler, who is a staple in the UFC, or not in the UFC, in the mixed martial arts world, he's going against Goti Yamauchi. You got
the GOAT.
You got Georgi Karakanyan versus Henry Corrales.
You said that with such certainty.
That's Georgi. I think it's Georgi.
Georgi.
Well, I think it's Georgi.
It's a guttural G. Like, go.
I have not seen him fight, so I look forward to watching him fight. All right. Then, in the co-main event, it's round 1 of the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix featuring Quentin Rampage, unless you're me and it's Wampage Jackson, versus Chael, the American Gangster, Sonnen.
How are you a gangster? What has he done in his whole life to be considered the gangster? He's got to change his name at this point.
Have you ever been to Oregon?
I have. I loved it there. Portland is beautiful.
That is like Chicago with trees, man.
Is it?
Yes. It's a dangerous
I will
place.
say, legitimately one time headed to Voodoo Donuts in Portland, and a van pulls up next to me. Ninjas jump out, but they ended up just playing like a random 5-minute show on the street with their instruments and then hop back in the van. So it was the scariest but most awesome moment in my life.
That's pretty gangster, let me just say. So you got Quentin Jackson versus Chael Sonnen, Rampage Jackson. And then for the main event, you got the welterweight title on the line, Douglas Lima versus Rory McDonald. Let's get some flash fight picks. Who you got, Quentin Jackson or Chael Sonnen?
Going Jackson here because Chael is old and frail.
Yeah, and Quentin Jackson's not. And then you got Douglas
the geriatric league.
You got Douglas Lima versus Rory McDonald.
Dude, Rory McDonald is only getting better with age. His skill set just continues to improve. I think this is one of those great examples of if you put one of the best of UFC against one of the best of Bellator, what happens? I think in this case, it proves out time and time again that UFC had the better talent. So I'm giving it to the former UFC guy here, Rory McDonald.
All right, well, in the Jackson Sonnen, I'm going Sonnen because Jackson don't like wrestlers. Sonnen's going to take him down. He's going to lay and pray, give him 80%, and win that fight. And then I got Rory McDonald. I mean, I was a fan of his in the UFC. That Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald. That was one of the greatest fights in UFC history. That's the kind of fight that he puts in. I think he's going to have quick, easy work with Douglas Lima. Let's go to TD Arena in Boston, Massachusetts for UFC 220.
This card is going to be wicked awesome.
Hey, that's really good.
Yeah, that's clam chowder.
That's about all you got. Yeah, gonna park the car. All right, you got bantamweight fight number 10, Thomas Almeida versus Rob Font. I got Almeida in this. I'm a big fan of his.
I'm down with Tommy Noss on this one.
All right, I got you got Guillen Villante versus Francimar Barrasso.
No, dude.
I don't know these guys. Okay, Calvin Kattar versus Hurricane Shane Burgos.
Let's go Hurricane.
Yeah, let's go Hurricane because he's got a nickname. And then you got the co-main event, Daniel DC Cormier versus Volkan No Time Ozdemir.
No time in jail for his fights.
Yes, remember we reported that Volkan Ozdemir got into a outside of a bar fight, knocked a dude out for 30 seconds or so, or maybe it was longer than that. Dude had to get 14 staples in his head. We thought maybe that Ozdemir was going to end up taking 2 years in jail, but instead he got a fight for the light heavyweight title. I think that's a great turn of fortune.
Great turn of fortune until DC destroys him.
Well, yeah. But, so I guess I don't need to do a fight pick there. Stipe Miocic faces the hardest puncher in the world, number one contender, Francis the Predator Ngannou.
I feel like we have a great opportunity to rebrand him as Frank the Tank because that'd be greatness. No, too soon? Old school? All right. I hate everyone.
There you go. All right. So let's do some flash fight picks here. Let's go with Cormier versus Ozdemir. Sounds like you got Cormier.
Yep.
Miocic versus Ngannou.
So I think I have to go Miocic here. I don't want to. Let me, for the record, say this, that I am 100% on this Frank the Tank hype train. Like, I believe in him. I just feel like the experience of Miocic is going to be hard for him to overcome. But, I pick both of them. Can I pick both?
No, because somebody got to go down.
I'm seeing like a Rocky finish here where they both just like knock each other out.
Yeah, but Rocky stood up. That's how. Remember, that's how he won. So for me, I'm going with Daniel Cormier. I don't think that Ozdemir has seen a wrestler like Cormier. I think Cormier is going to try to stand with him, realize that he's just not going to be able to have the striking that Ozdemir is going to bring, and then he's going to take Ozdemir down. He's going to gas him out and then probably choke him out. Yep. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. I was going to make fun of you about being on the Francis Ngannou hype train and then picking against him. But I'm sitting right next to you, dude.
It's hard not to. Oh, this guy's awesome. But still need more. I need to see more.
Francis Ngannou has done a lot in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, all that short period of time has been in the first round. Like, I need to see a guy who can go 5 rounds. You know, I think that Stipe Miocic is going to be smart enough not to get knocked out early, and we're going to see if Francis Ngannou can keep the pace for rounds 4 and 5. And I think if it goes to 4 and 5, if Stipe Miocic doesn't finish him, he's going to win by decision.
Yep.
All right, that's our show. Follow us on social media. On Twitter, I'm at CST Ryan.
And I am at CST_KC.
You can check out the website at www.combatsportstalk.com. Comment on some of the posts. Comment on it. Let us know what you're thinking.
Tell me something good.
Tell me something good.
No, we're not doing that part?
No, we're not doing that part. We just should have. All right. Well, you can also find that on iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook. We got a Facebook page. Like our Facebook page.
Yes.
And then find us on Instagram. I'm at Combat Sports Talk.
And I am at a whole bunch of different things. Let's go with at Push Pull Pray.
All right. Okay. So, our theme music is composed by Scott McCurry at ScottDeanCountry.com. KC Onyebuchi produced our lead-ins. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Combat Sports Talk. For KC Onyebuchi, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. It was Chris Lieben.